It's certain Central Florida Congressman Alan Grayson will have much more to talk about in the coming weeks. But today, he'll discuss immigration, same-sex marriage, and a host of other key issues. All this today on Central Florida Spotlight. Hi, folks, and welcome back to Central Florida Spotlight. Today I'm joined by Congressman Alan Grayson, an Orlando Democrat from Florida's 9th Congressional District with a reputation for speaking his mind and being very clear about his position on the issues. Congressman, thanks for joining us again today. With that intro, that would be accurate.
Thanks. You know, I speak my mind because who else's mind would I speak, right? Mm-hmm. It's got to be my mind, nobody else's.
Having that outspoken nature, has that gotten you good publicity, bad publicity, the publicity you want?
I don't think that much about it, but I do think people appreciate someone who's a straight talker. That much is clear. I think that voters are entitled to know what's on your mind. If you're going to ask for their vote, they need to know what's honestly on your mind, what you're going to do for them. And people know that when I make a promise, I'm going to keep it.
Let's talk about what happened. Congratulations on being reelected, by the way.
Thanks. By a double-digit margin in a very bad year for my party.
That's my next point.
Yeah.
It was not a good year. Republicans now solidly in control. How will you reach across the aisle?
The same way that I have. Slate magazine said I was the most effective member of Congress, Democratic or Republican, in the past 2 years. And I passed more amendments on the floor of the House of Representatives controlled by Republicans than anyone, either Democratic or Republican. Over 30 amendments in the course of 2 years.
It was not a good run for the Democrats. A lot of your fellow Democrats are not back in Washington now. Wake-up call?
No, I don't think so. I think that the other side successfully vilified the president and made it seem like the president had been ineffective when, in fact, the country's better off than it was when we were on the precipice of a Great Depression 6 years ago. And now we have 10 million people who have health coverage who didn't have it a year ago. So there's a lot that was accomplished, but the Republicans, without putting forth any positive program of their own, nevertheless vilified the president, and they did so successfully.
Let's talk about that, Obamacare. Some would call it successful from your vantage point. Others would say it's nothing but an expensive way of forcing people into health care, and yet there's a gap with millions of people still uninsured.
Well, let's look at some of the things that have been accomplished. There were 40 million people who had a pre-existing health condition and couldn't get private insurance. Now they can. We have 170 million women in the population. They used to have to pay more for their health care because they were women. Now they don't have to pay more for their health care any longer. We've dramatically expanded Medicaid in those states that were open to it. And we've put, as I said earlier, 10 million people in a position where now they can see a doctor when they're sick, and before they couldn't afford to do so. I think those are very important accomplishments. If you can show me somebody who has been forced to buy health care, I'd like to meet that person. I think that's a bum rap.
You had the outspoken moment on the Hill with your sign, Republicans Plan. Do you look back on that? I saw you smile when I brought that back up. It became a viral moment for you.
Oh, without any question, sure. And the reason why it was is because it hit on a deep truth. Republicans need to learn that you can't fight something with nothing. And one of the most offensive elements of their continuous obsession with repealing Obamacare is the fact they want to replace it with nothing. We need to make health care universal in this country. We need to make sure that sick people can see a doctor. We need to make it affordable. We need to make it comprehensive so that it actually covers the things that you need to have covered.
You've also worked with taxes. How are you going to ensure the extension of certain tax provisions?
I think that one of our big accomplishments, and one of my big accomplishments, is politics. A lot of people refer to our when they really mean mine, and a lot of people refer to mine when they really mean ours. So let me be clear. I passed 9 bills in the last week, unchanged from the form that I had submitted them, in a Republican-controlled legislature to dramatically extend middle-class tax cuts for Americans. Let me give you an example. A lot of people don't realize this, but as of last week, we were facing a repeal of the tax break that you get on your taxes because we have state sales taxes but not income taxes. That was going to end as of December 31st. I extended that. Let me give you another example. Do you own a home?
Yes.
Okay. Do you pay mortgage insurance?
No.
Okay. Many people do. There is a deduction for mortgage insurance that was due to expire on December 31st. I extended that for a year. We passed a total of...
That's the PMI.
That's right. That we passed a total of 9 of these that I introduced back in January, lobbied heavily with the Republican majority in order to get them extended. The Republicans initially were resistant. They wanted to have tax cuts only for businesses. And eventually they relented, and we saw 9 of those passed in the order that I introduced them back in January, unchanged, word for word. I think that was a tremendous accomplishment.
Did you vote for that bill?
Are you talking about the tax bill?
Mm-hmm.
No, I voted against it, actually.
And yet we're talking about it today. Why'd you vote against it?
I voted against it because I thought that a lot of it was unpaid, and I was concerned about that. My bills are bills that generally are bills where there's a pay for. There were a lot of corporate giveaways that I was uncomfortable with. There were a lot of tax breaks for businesses like oil companies that simply don't need them. So I was uncomfortable with that, and therefore I voted the way I voted. But it did not change the fact that I had maneuvered for an entire year behind the scenes to see that the middle class tax breaks in that bill, things like energy efficient homes and so on, the ones that I mentioned, that these things were extended for a year.
And yet you tout it, but you're not happy about it.
Well, listen, one of the big problems we face in Washington, D.C. is that these bills are chock full of all sorts of stuff. And it's often the case that I'm unhappy with the final product because, frankly, the Republicans are in charge. I'm a Democrat. What do you expect?
All right. We had wanted to ask Congressman